ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्.
So today in this session we will talk about mutual exclusion. As we have saw in the previous session that we have two processes, and there is one shared variable in between them, and both of them trying to access that variable. When the access is concurrent, okay, when both of the processes trying to access simultaneously, then we see the result inconsistent irrespective of the type of architecture it is. It might be a multiprocessor system or a uniprocessor system. If two processes are trying to access a shared variable simultaneously, it is the result of the execution of those two processes leaving the data of shared variable in inconsistent state. Okay. So we don't want this inconsistency, okay. Irrespective of whether they are executed simultaneously or sequentially, we want output to be same. Output should not change if I execute two processes simultaneously or sequentially. Okay. Now this situation, which one shared resource, there is one shared resource and there are two or more than two processes competing for those resource, okay, to access, is called, this situation is called a race condition. So race condition is a situation in which two or more than two processes are trying to access the shared resource simultaneously, and thereby leaving the state of the resource in an inconsistent state. Okay. Now in order to get consistency, okay, we need to ensure mutual exclusion, or we need to synchronize this all these processes in order to get consistent result. Now how this synchronization is possible? This synchronization is possible, there are many mechanisms for achieve synchronization. So before we see all those mechanisms, let us get here with the terminology what we are going to use in synchronizations. The first is of course mutual exclusion. What do you mean by mutual exclusion? Then we will see what is a critical section. Then we will see what is a non-critical section. We also call it as remainder section. Okay. Yeah, and race condition, of course. We know that what is race condition. Now there are n number of processes. For simplicity I am taking only two processes. Now these two processes have their own code, and in their code they are accessing a variable which is shared between them. So there is one variable, assume, okay, int count, and it is shared, for example, shared in count. I am just using shared to specify this is a shared variable. There is nothing keyword like shared in C, okay. Or I can declare it as global variable or static variable. So when both of these processes are trying to access them simultaneously, they leave the state of this resource in inconsistent state. So the situation where n number of processes are competing for a single shared resource, okay, is called race condition. Okay. We need to avoid race condition. How is it possible? It is possible by ensuring mutual exclusion, irrespective of whether these processes are executing simultaneously, okay, concurrently. Okay. I don't mind if they execute concurrently, but the thing which is shared between them must be executed sequentially. Okay. So this is very important. So how can I ensure it? So in order to get this scenario in which, okay, let them execute concurrently. If I have n multiprocessor architecture, okay, let them execute concurrently on different processors. Okay. But when it comes to a shared variable, okay, they should execute them in sequential order. Okay. So in order to introduce this concept, how can I do this? Okay. in order to do this, the concept of critical section has been brought. So, what is critical section? Critical section it is actually a code which directly acts on shared resource or a shared variable. So, critical section, what is critical section? Critical section is a code, it is a set of instruction which acts on shared variable, shared resource. Okay. So, this is called critical section. So, now here in this situation, the critical section is this, it is shared variable, this is called critical section. Now, this critical section, I have separated my code into two parts. Okay. Every process will have, now this here, this processes, n number of processes are involved in this condition scenario. Okay. Their code can be separated into two different parts now. One is critical region or critical section, and another is non-critical region or remainder section. Okay. So, what do you mean by non-critical section? Non-critical section is, it is also set of instructions, okay, which need not necessarily, which are not acting on shared resource. Okay. Here you might be acting on independent variables, or you call it as a local variables, okay, or variables which are not shared. But whereas in critical sections we are dealing with those resources which are shared, okay, which are dependent on each other. Modification of one may be seen by another process. So, like this we have divided our process into two different regions, critical region and non-critical region. Now, in order to let non-critical section will be executed simultaneously, concurrently, but when it comes to critical section, we have to ensure mutual exclusion here. So, what do you mean by mutual exclusion? Mutual exclusion is what? It is the ability of a process it is the ability of a system to allow a single process to execute critical section, while one of these process is executing this critical section, no other process will be allowed. Okay. So, this is called mutual exclusion. So, how do we write what is mutual exclusion? How do we define mutual exclusion? So, mutual exclusion is nothing but it is an ability process. Mutual exclusion, ME stands for mutual exclusion, it is our convention. So, it is the ability of a process to execute or we write like this, it is an ability of a process to exclude all the processes other processes from a course of action while one of the process is given ability to execute. So, it is the ability of a process to exclude all the other processes from course of action for executing while one of the processes is given that ability to execute. This is called mutual exclusion, right. So, critical section CS, our convention CS. So, the code which directly acts on shared resource, it is called critical section. So, there are many synchronization mechanisms for there are many synchronization mechanisms. So, those mechanisms should ensure mutual exclusion, and they should ensure that while one process is interested in entering into the critical section, then it should be given chance to enter into the critical section, but it should not be allowed to enter into the critical section if already there is process which is executing the critical section, meaning ensuring mutual exclusion, right. And no process should be indefinitely starved for entering into the critical section, meaning when one of the process is interested in entering into the critical section, it should not be inherently blocked for entering into the critical section. If anybody decide to enter into the critical section, they have to be given chance to enter into the critical section. So meaning first we have to ensure that mutual exclusion, that synchronization mechanism should ensure mutual exclusion, and it should also ensure progress. Progress means if any one of this process want to enter the critical section, because of that it should not allow other process to stop. Okay, so it should ensure progress, and it should also be architectural neutral. What do you mean by architectural neutral? The mechanism should be architectural neutral, meaning the mechanism should be like that. If I'm using this synchronization mechanism in uniprocessor system, okay, then same mechanism should also work on multiprocessor system. Okay, as I have told you that the problem of race condition may arises if there is pseudo parallelism or real parallelism. The problem of inconsistency remains both. If you are suggesting a solution, then that solution should also be useful in both uniprocessor system and multiprocessor system. So it should be architectural neutral, and there should be no bounded waiting. Okay. And because of this because of one process, there should be nothing like that. If one process want to enter into the critical section, it is unable to enter into the critical section because some other process which is not in the critical section has control over it. It means every process should be independent of entering into the critical section. Entering into the critical section, they need not dependent on other processes which are not in the critical section. Okay. All these things should be ensured for this mechanisms which we are going to ensure for synchronization. So one of the mechanisms which has been given is disabling the interrupts, meaning it's actually a hardware solution where for the first solution is hardware solution or disabling the interrupts. Now whenever any process want to enter into the critical section, they have to request for entering into the critical section. If all the interrupts have been disabled, then no other process will raise their desire to enter into the critical section unless and until all these disables are enabled, right? All these interrupts are enabled. So if a process want to enter into the critical section, it will disable all the interrupts and enter into the critical section. Now assume that this is my critical section region. This is my critical section region. So before it enters into the critical section, it will disable all interrupts. Okay. Then it will enter into the critical section and execute the critical section code. Now after it executes, it will enable the critical. It will enable all the interrupts. But this is a very danger kind of solution. What happens if a process go crazy, meaning when after disabling the interrupt, it doesn't enable it. Okay. Then what happens? There will be no progress at all. Okay. Might be this will ensure progress provided if you are strictly following the enabling of interrupts and disabling and interrupts of disabling of interrupts and enabling interrupts will happen, of course, at any cost, but we cannot guarantee it, because what happens if a process after disabling the interrupt it went into the critical section and it blocked into the critical section. So there should be one more condition we have to add. What is that? No process should be allowed in critical section to run for indefinitely. Okay. So there is possibility of starvation here. So after disabling the interrupts, okay, suppose if it has not enabled it, then we are dependent on that. There is another implementation issues here. We have interrupt enabling in a system, but we don't have in a multiprocessor environment. We don't have interrupts across the processors. Okay. Process can give interrupt, or they can generate interrupts, but across the processors, CPUs, we don't have in multiprocessor system any mechanism for signaling or disabling interrupts across the processors. So, there is danger solution, right. So, we do not follow. Then we have another solution which is now which is using a lock variable. Now this lock variable takes two values, either 0 or 1. Okay. Now if it is 0, it means no process is in the critical section. It means it will be allowed to enter into the critical section if the value of lock is 0. Okay. So before it enters into the critical section, it will check. Okay. If lock is equal to 0, then only it will enter into the critical section. Otherwise it has to wait. Okay. So it means critical section is free, and here critical section is here it's busy. It means if the value of lock is already 1, it means the process is already in the critical section, and we are not allowed to enter into the critical section, because parallel execution is possible for non-critical sections. Okay. However, the parallelism level is, but all the critical section must be executed sequentially. That is the fundamental basic. So here what do we do is, while lock is not equal to 0, okay, it does nothing. Okay, it has to wait till the value of lock becomes 0. But here it ensures mutual exclusion, but not always. There is possibility of not ensuring mutual exclusion here. How? As we know that this option can be, at language level it seems to be a single instruction, but at low level it might be again split into different instructions. Now there is ever possibility that that the variable has seen the value of lock to be 0 and enter into the critical section, and at the same time another process is also saw the value of 0, value of lock to be 0, and it also has thought that there is nobody in the critical section. Now generally what happens is, see, if two processes, process P1 and process P2, now what happens if this lock variable is 0 and both of them sees the value, before it gets updated, when it sees the lock value 0, it will enter into the critical section. Before before it enters into the critical section, it makes value of lock to be 1. So the other processes which are interested in entering into the critical section should be blocked. But the time interval between this process has seen the value of lock and before it enters into the critical section, in the duration of time, if this process has seen the value of lock, it thinks that the critical section is free, and it also enters into the critical section. Thereby the result is there were actually two processes, P1 and P2, inside the critical section, and there is no mutual exclusion here, right. So to prove that how it is possible, we can break this instruction into multiple small instructions. Okay, we'll do it like so. Assume that when lock is some memory, it's a variable whose value will be stored in memory. So what do we do is we load the value which is there in memory called lock, okay, into a register R1, for example. Okay. Now after loading this, now we'll compare this. Okay, compare. What are we comparing? We are comparing the value of R1. Is the value of R1 is 0 or not? If it is 0, it means critical section is free. Okay. If it is not 0, then critical section is busy. So if it is not 0, so jump on not 0. Okay, where again it goes to step 1. Okay, just I'm just doing what I'm comparing the value of R1. If the value of R1 is 1, which is not equivalent to 0, again load the value of lock into register R1, and again I will check whether it's 0 or not. So it's keep on busily checking value of lock whether it is 0 or not, so that I can enter into the critical section. Okay. Now then what happens if suppose after comparing, if the value of R1 is 0, okay, then this is false. Now it goes into the fourth part. So wherein what it does it do? Okay, it will it will just change the value. Okay, it will increment the value of R1. Okay, now meaning yeah. So if it is not 0, so what we do is we will store. Okay, if it is not 0, it yeah, if it is 0, then I will store in R1 value 1, then I will load what do we do is we will just copy this value, one value in lock. Okay. So, we load the value 1 . Now, we assume that this direct value is going into the memory. Okay, this is allowed. Okay. We are assuming that this is possible. So, now after making this value 1, it means it is like this. Okay, I have a critical section and the value of lock is checked here. If it is 0, then before it enters into the critical section, it will take the value of lock to be 1 and enters into the critical section. So that when other processes are coming, they will see the value of lock to be 1 and blocks. Okay. They do busy waiting. Okay. They go on to loop. Okay. Then it will enter into the critical section. After it enters into the critical section, now what happens? Or we'll store like this. We'll store at this memory location 1 otherwise. Okay. Then enter into the critical section. After entering into the critical section, okay, critical section stuff is completed. Now after this, what do we do is we'll again store, in mlock value 0, so that this value again becomes 0 when other processes which are waiting to enter into the critical section sees the value to be 0 and enters into the critical section. Okay. So now after this, now it will execute remainder section. Now these are the 7 set of instructions given. Now my question is, prove how it reveals, how does it go against mutual exclusion. Okay, how this mutual exclusion can be broken, and how give a scenario in which two processes enter in critical section. Okay. Now let's write the sequences and find that mutual exclusion is not achieved with this. Okay. Actually, so assume that we have two processes which are running same code. So we have process P1 and we have process P2. So assume that process P1 has executed at time T1, process P1 has executed instruction 1, okay, loading. So now what happens? I'll write it like this. I'll write here process P1, okay, and the memory contents of lock, okay, and here I'll write process P2 and the memory contents of lock. Okay. So when at time T1, okay, process P1 is executing this, for example. Now this I am showing in a uniprocessor system. In multiprocessor system, it is obvious that because there are two processors and both of them sees the value to be and enter into the critical section, right? But here you see what happens. In uniprocessor system, pseudo parallelism is happening. So no, it means if we can process the problem in uniprocessor system, then the same problem can be reflected on the processor system, of course. Right? So at for time T1, process P1 has executed instruction I1. So when it has now at this point of time, assume that initially the value of lock is 0. Okay. So now when after executing this, R1 is having value 0. Okay. Now it is comparing, is it 0? Yeah, it is 0. So at time T2, it is executing instruction 2. Okay. Now suppose here interrupt comes. When interrupt comes, now at time T3, assume that process P4, P2 has been given chance. Here again, instruction 1 of process P1 is executed. Here also it will have same value. Okay. Actually both of them share, so it will look this value. So both of them will look these values only. Okay. When it checks the value of M, So it also sees the value of M log to be 0. So it also puts into register R1 which is 0. Okay. Then at time T4 it will also execute instruction I2. Then at time T5, okay, what happens? It will execute instruction I3. So it's not equal to 0. Okay. Now when it is not equal to 0, it will again at time T6, okay, before before it is updated, what happens is in time T3, sorry, not time T3. Here it is modifying the value of, it is storing the value of log as 1 here in time T6. I3 means instruction 4 is executed. Instruction 4 is executed, then it at time 7 it entered into the critical section. Instruction 5 is executed. Okay. Now process P1 has entered the critical section. These are all instructions I1, I2, I3, okay, I4, I5, I6, I7. Okay. Now after it entered into the critical section, okay, now it has resumed, for example, interrupt comes. Then at time T8, okay, now it has executed 2 instructions. So it will also check jump not 0. Yes, suppose it is 0 because R1 is value 0. So it will also check 1. Okay. Now the problem here is, okay, both of them looked, it modified also, but the modified value is in memory. It has updated here. But after interrupt, when it has resumed from, it is not checking the memory. It is checking only the register. Process P1 is checking only the register. And process P1 is only checking the register. It sees that the value is 0, so it is jump not 0. So again what happens, it also makes the value 1 and it also enters into the critical section, which is I3, 4, okay. So now T11, okay. Now I think this is sufficient to prove that both of the processes are there in the critical section. So that's why you should not allow a critical section, we should not allow to preempt it, while till it means we have to make the critical section code atomic. We should not did across the processes while executing. We should not allow preemption when process executes. Otherwise what happens, complete priority inversion problem algorithms, like what happens, see here, suppose I have a process P1 and process P2, and both of these processes are having this process P1 and it has some priority, high priority, and another process P2 which is having a low priority. Okay. We are running, assume two process solution or Peterson solution algorithm on this CPU. It means this CPU has ability for executing only 2 processes simultaneously, allowing synchronization among them. It can be it can be extended. The same idea can be extended for a number of processes, but for simplicity we are taking only 2 processes here. Now assume process P1 has entered because its priority is high. Okay. Now if this priority is now, assume that first process P1 didn't come and process P2 is having low priority because there is nobody in the ready queue. So process P2 has given chance. When process P2 has been given chance, process P2 was executing. While it is executing, it has entered into the critical section. Okay, it has entered into the critical section. While it has entered into the critical section, after it has entered into the critical section, now what happens? Process P1 has been added to the ready queue. Now because process P1 is added, it has to be preempted. Okay. Now process P2 has been preempted, but remember, when process P2, while it has been preempted, it has already marked the value of lock variable to be 1. Okay. Initially lock was 0. This process P2 marked it as lock 1. Okay. And it has been preempted. So when it has been preempted, so process P2, when it is want to enter into the critical section, it is not allowed to enter into the critical section. The lower priority process is had made the value of lock to be 1. Now this process P2, it cannot execute, and process P1 also cannot execute. Why process P1 cannot execute? process P1 cannot execute because this is a priority based algorithm, priority based preemptive algorithm, and a higher priority process there, it will not be allowed to enter in, it will be given CPU. And why higher priority process cannot be executed? It cannot be executed because a lower priority process has already entered into the critical section and modified the shared variable, and before it has updated the value of lock, it has been preempted. Because it has been preempted, another process P2 which want to enter into the critical section, it cannot do so. Why? Because of lower priority process has already changed the value. This is called priority inversion law. A higher priority process is waiting for lower priority process to preempt, which is not true, because lower priority process was waiting for higher priority process to complete it first. Okay, this is like a priority inversion problem. A higher priority process is waiting for a lower priority process. That results in a deadlock. So that's why the root cause here is whenever you are executing a critical section, don't allow any process to preempt while it is executing the critical section. Even though the time quantum expires, take some extra time and execute this critical section. The basic idea is don't allow any process to preempt when it is in the critical section. Otherwise, it creates a lot of problems, right? So this is what. Now here it is preempted because it is not atomic. So the thing is we have to make these updations, all these things atomic, so that when this atomic, what do you mean by atomic operation? An operation, it might be a set of instructions, right? While you are executing this set of instruction, if another process, whatever may be its priority or whatever it is, how much important it is, we should not, either we should we should execute any one of those instructions, or if you have started executing, then execute it till it gets completed. It means the instructions are indivisible. Okay? You cannot divide them, that I'll execute some part of this instruction, then later on when this process gets executed, then I'll execute. This is not assumed in atomic instruction. So it has to be do or do nothing. That's all. So this the lock variable doesn't supports mutual exclusion here. Okay. Then there are many solutions which is already there in your book, and I think you have already learned from Galvin and Tynema, which is there in your JNTU syllabus as well. So I am not spending time in explaining those solutions, right? So just I'll give an overview. We have a turn variable also, right? Turn variable. Now here you have a process P0 and process P1, for example. Now what happens while it is turn, if the turn is not equal to 0 for process P0, if its turn is not there, okay, then it will run. But if the turn of this process is there, then it will be allowed into the critical section. Okay. Here similarly for process P, okay, if the turn is for it, then if the turn is not for P1, it will do nothing. Okay. It's called do nothing loop, infinite loop, till it's called busy waiting, right? Otherwise it will enter into the critical section. Now what happens when process P0 is executing? Now we have a turn variable which is shared between them. If the value of turn is equal to 0, it means process P0 will be executed. If the value of turn is equal to 1, then process 1 will be executed here. Okay. The problem with this approach is there is strict alteration and busy waiting also. Here how busy waiting? If the value of turn is 0, okay, then process P0 will be allowed, and process P1 also want to enter into the critical section. It sees the value of turn to be, for example, see here. If the value of turn is 0, then process, what happens? This process will enter into the critical section because it is its turn. It enters into the critical section. When it enters into the critical section, this process P1 will see, I want to enter into the critical section. It sees that this is not its turn, so it keep on checking the value of turn. This is called busy waiting. Busy waiting, wastes it wastes lot of CPU time, so we should avoid this busy waiting. How do we avoid? We have different solutions for that. Okay. So it keeps on busy waiting. There is a strict alteration, meaning after 0 it will go to 1, after 1 it goes to 0. Now suppose, assume that if process P0 you want to execute in small interval of time, and process P1 want to execute in large interval of time. Okay. So because of this strict alteration, meaning when this process, what do you mean by strict alteration? When turn is 0, then process P0 will be executed. Afterwards, it make the value of turn to be 1, so that the chance will be given. Okay, it's like subroutines. I have executed. Now it's your turn. To execute 2 times, you cannot, because I did execute times. Okay, so here it will make the value of turn to be 0. Okay. In process P0, if process P0 execute 10 times, forcefully let this process P0 times because I want to execute it. Okay, there is tight binding between their execution. So here also progress is not. Why? Because this process P0, when it has entered into the critical section, then we don't want to enter into the there in the critical section. It's done to enter, and when P0 gets done only if P1 has one critical section come back. Okay. So this is not there in the critical section. It's a process to enter into the critical section. So this is also not. So now we do a here level synchronization. So this is a good synchronization mechanism. So let's discuss what is semaphores. Now here semaphore is a higher level synchronization primitive. It is actually an integer variable upon which only two operations can be performed. First is initialization and second is two atomic operations. Called wait signal. Okay. Most of the people don't like wait to be called as wait. There is one reason. They want to call it as dawn. Okay. So a matching word for dawn is up, or you can call it proheren, woheren, V or P, proheren. Proheren and woheren, they are German words, okay, which means dawn and up or wait signal. So either for wait we can use, these are all atomic operations, meaning when wait is executed, then the preemption possible. Either it will execute, or it will not execute. It is atomic; it cannot be divisible. And this is Now initialization is generally used for initializing the value of a semaphore. For binary semaphore, generally assigned value 1. For counting semaphore, we can initialize this value to any value. So there are two types of semaphores actually. One is binary semaphore and another is counting semaphore. Counting semaphore. Okay. In binary semaphore, suppose I have declared a semaphore like this, type def int semaphore. Okay. Suppose I have declared semaphore like this, semaphore S for example. Okay. Now in binary semaphore, S can take only two values, either 0 or 1. Okay. In binary semaphore, the value of S is first initialized to 1 and only two operations can be performed. Okay. What do you mean by wait operation on binary semaphore? If I perform wait of S, now it will check the value of S. Okay. If the value of S is 1, okay, then it will make the value of S to be 0 and let the process run. Okay. This is the problem. Most of the people don't like this wait. Why? Because the wait the wait term actually, not wait operation. Why? Because even though the name is wait, it is not actually allowing a process to wait, okay, which we'll understand in counting semaphore. Okay. So when the value of S is 0, if S is equal to 1, okay, then what happens? It means S is equal to 0, okay, and just continue execution. Okay. This is called wait. But else, if S is not 1, then of course it will be 0. Okay. If it is 0, then block the process. Will block the process. It means what? Now assume that we have a critical section. So we have a critical section here. Okay. I want to enter into the critical section. So for entering into the critical section, we will declare a variable called semaphore S is equal to, okay. So before I enter into the critical section, so I will perform wait on S. So when I perform wait on S, okay, it will decrement the value of 1, and because this is non-zero, this is equal to 0, okay, it is greater than 0, it resumes, it enters into the critical section. So after when it enters into the critical section, what happens? When it comes out of this critical section, it executes signal. Now signal of S, what this signal of S operation will do? Okay, signal of S performs this operation. Okay, if the value of S is equal to 0, okay, so it makes the value of S is equal to 1. Okay, this is only the possibility. Okay, but if the value of is else, okay, nothing, it does nothing, because if the value of S is already 1 and I want to execute signal on that, so because it is a binary semaphore, the value of S cannot exceed 1. Okay, so here nothing happens. So here it increments the value of S. So what happens is, now when two processes are executing the same code, and semaphore is a shared data, it's a special synchronization data which can be only modified by special synchronization primitives, which are wait and signal. So again it also performs wait and enter into the critical section, then signal of S. Now what happens here? Assume that process P1 want to enter into the critical section, then it makes, because the value of S is, this is shared in them, S is 1, so process P1 makes it 1, enters into the critical section. When this process P2 want to enter into the critical section, so because these are atomic, while one process is executing, the other process, this indivisible action. It means while it is performing wait operation on that, this process P cannot do anything with S. Okay. So it sees the value of S to be 0. When wait of S, if it is equal to 0, then it blocks the process. So this process gets blocked automatically, right? So when it has completed its execution, again it performs signal, it has the value of semaphore to be 1, then again this is allowed. Then what happens? When it sees, okay, it enters into the critical section by making it 0, and signal of S, it becomes 1. So this is called a binary semaphore, in which the value of semaphore takes only 0 and 1. So a binary semaphore is a special primitive, and refer this binary semaphore variables. Okay. So instead of this S, we call it as mutex. So mutex. So mutex is a special synchronization variable which can take value either 0 or 1. That's all. Then counting semaphore is a semaphore in which the value of S can be initialized to any variable n. Okay. So it means S is used for a single binary semaphore. A single resistor is empty or not. But whereas a counting semaphore is used for synchronization across n. If I have 5 shared printers, I can synchronize with the help of semaphore value initial. Okay. So this counting semaphore. So counting semaphore also has the same operations, wait and signal.